Come on, we can do it.
Okay. So welcome to the representatives from Department of Treasury Fiscal Group. I'm going to hand over to Senator Patterson for the first lot of questions.
Is anyone in Fiscal Group involved in identifying or remediating the unlawful payment of $2.3 billion?
Damien White, Deputy Secretary Fiscal Group. Yes, Senator.
Great. What can you tell me about when this issue was first identified?
Senator, as we disclosed in our annual report, we have potential breaches of Section 83 of the Constitution.
Sorry, which breach? Sorry.
In our 2024 annual report, we disclosed potential breaches of Section 83 of the Constitution.
Did you say potential?
Potential, yes, Senator.
Are they still potential?
Potential is the technical wording used for this. Like, we are not pretending that they're not breaches of that, but all the legal advice and things that we get about reporting these says we should use those words.
The ANO was pretty clear that it wasn't a theoretical or potential or technical breach.
So the legal advice we get when we look at these things tells us to use those words, and we have used those words. We are not pretending that we don't think they're a breach of Section 83.
Good to know.
That would be consistent with all of the other ones that have been reported in the past.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we reported those in our annual report, Senator. It was 8 payments made in 2024-25 for the Energy Bill Relief Extension Program. There are 2 aspects of how these work. So when we're thinking about making payments to the states, we think about, one, getting the policy part right, so the right payment, the right amount for the right reasons. That all worked well. We did that perfectly. The administrative parts of the process were the bits that were not done correctly, and that happened when we changed from the original program, so the original Energy Bill Relief program, and we changed over to the extension program. And it was when that happened that we managed not to do the administrative parts of the program correctly, and that's what we've reported in the annual report.
Okay. Please keep going. Yep.
And then, yes, then we identified. So after we made the mistakes, we then identified them as part of our process. So we have processes in place to try and make sure we do these things correctly. We take seriously our role in making the payments properly. For this particular program, Treasury has 2 roles. So one, it's a Treasury portfolio or Treasury administered payment. It's a payment for our department. But we also run the overall payments to the states function. So every payment to the state from any agency in the Commonwealth comes through us. So we have both those roles. So we picked up that error after we had made them, and then we identified them. We took corrective action. Now, I think you had a different question, Senator, about which I haven't probably not gotten to yet.
You haven't, but that's okay. That was helpful. On what date was each of the 8 payments approved within Treasury systems?
So the payments were made, the first payments were made in October, and they were monthly payments, and they were made from October, and the last payment was in June. There was a gap in the middle around Christmas, Senator, where we wouldn't make payments.
So 8 payments between October and June. So that's literally once a month. Was there a particular date on the month? Date of month?
So I think were they 21st? So we make payments on the 7th and the 21st, Senator.
So there were fortnightly payments.
We'll have to check.
We might have to check, Senator, but there's a payment done on the 7th of each month and one on the 21st of each month, and these payments would be in one of those dates every month, either all 7ths or all 21st.
I see. Understood. Okay. Yeah. If you provide that on notice, that would be good.
Yep.
And so, is it the same date they're approved within Treasury system and actually paid? Are they
no,
the same
Senator.
date?
So there's a whole process. So there's a process of the area that's responsible for the program doing things like collecting data from the states, working out how much is supposed to be paid, ticking off their part of the process. They put them into our IT system. They then come to the central area who have a process for also doing some checking. Do we have to get ministerial approval to pay these? Well, I think there's for the payment as a whole. So each of these payment rounds has many payments in them from many organisations. We then have to get overall approval for that to be paid by a minister, by one of the Treasury ministers, and then eventually they're paid. So the process is probably at least a few weeks before it gets paid, Senator.
Okay. So perhaps on notice then, when the payments were approved within Treasury system and when they were actually paid.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Who ultimately has authority within Treasury in terms of their level of employment, SES, EL, Deputy Secretary, whatever, to make that approval?
So part of the reason that I said that the problem arose because we went from the original payment to the extension payment is that there are two pathways through the Federal Financial Relations Act you can make payments to the states, and we actually changed the pathway between the two payments. So in the first payment, it has an authorised, so all these payments have authorisations from the Treasurer down to people in Treasury to do the administration of authorised payments. So those first ones, under the original energy bill relief, went down to Band 2 SES. No, Band 1 SES, sorry. Band 1 SES. It covered all SES in Treasury. The second payments had an authorisation that was different and only went down to Band 2 SES. And effectively that is a main reason for our problem.
Explain that to me, I don't understand.
So the person who was authorising, or the position that was authorising the original payments was a Band 1 SES.
Yep.
That delegation went all the way down to Band 1 SES. When we changed to the extension, effectively, this is the only program that we know of where a program has changed the pathways through which it's gone. And so when we went to the extension one, we had then a Band 1 SES approving the payments, and they were not one of the people authorised in that delegation because it only stopped at Band 2 SES, so one level above.
Right. Okay. So what is the approval that Band 1 and then Band 2, or Band 2 then Band 1, SES officer lacked?
So sorry, it's the same Band 1 officer who was approving all of them.
Right.
So in the original program, we had a delegation from the Treasurer that says everyone down to a Band 1 officer can approve it.
Yes.
A Band 1 officer was approving it,
yes,
totally legally and properly.
I see.
When we moved to the second one, we moved to the other pathway. The delegation instrument did not go down to Band 1 anymore. It stopped at Band 2. And that's the thing we missed, right? So the same Band 1 person who is responsible for the program was still authorising it.
But they no longer had the authority.
But they no longer had the right delegation, Senator.
Right. So why did it change?
So it's just a decision for government. You can use either pathway. And after the original program ended on 30 June, I think, 2024, in the way the government did it, they did the other way. And unfortunately, that defeated our checking processes for a while.
Why would a government choose to do it in these two different pathways? What's the advantages or disadvantages of each one?
So one pathway, Senator, you pass legislation and the program comes into the Federal Financial Relations Act.
Is that the
and that was
first
the first
pathway?
way. That was so the first time it was done was passed by legislation. The second pathway does not require legislation. It relies on making an agreement with the states. And there are lots of agreements with the states that go through this pathway. It's possibly the more common pathway, but it was a decision for government about how they wanted to do it. I don't have any further information on why that was chosen.
When was the decision taken to do it this way?
Do you know the answer to that?
First Assistant Secretary Mark Thomas from the First Nations and Commonwealth State Division. I would have to find the precise date for you, Senator, but it was certainly in following the announcement to extend the scheme in the 24-25 budget. There was a decision to move to, as Mr White referred to change the way it was done so it could be more efficient. So it became a national partnership payment under Section 16, and so it was partly an issue of efficiency.
When you say efficiency, do you mean it didn't require legislation?
No, that's not correct. It's that it provided a mechanism to pay the states through this national partnership payments mechanisms, which was just a more efficient way of doing it than under the previous program.
But how is it more efficient? I mean, I understood from Mr White's answers before that one pathway required legislation and one did not. So is it the absence of legislation being required that is more efficient? So
the appropriation when the energy bill relief extension occurred was appropriated under section 16, not under a different section prior to that. And it meant that could be expedited without reopening the legislation.
Correct. So it's more efficient because it didn't require legislation.
Yes, although there were a range of agreements.
No, that's okay, but that was my original question. It's more efficient because it doesn't require legislation. The answer is yes.
Yes.
Okay. So wasn't the Parliament sitting in this period? Was there a reason why there couldn't be legislation?
It's a choice of government, Senator, about how they choose to do payments to the states. As I said, there are two pathways. They are both used. In fact, the second one is probably used more often than the first one. Governments choose all the time about which pathway they want to go through.
But, I mean, as you say, the decision to make the extension was in the budget. Don't leave me hanging. Yes. The decision to extend the energy relief supplement, was it taken in the budget? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
The payments to be made between October and June? Yes.
It was to take effect from the beginning of the financial year, Senator, yes. And, in the event payments couldn't be made till October in the first instance.
So payments were kind of backdated.
So I think for the first, I think we probably backdated for the first quarter of payments, that there was energy bill relief for the first quarter and we probably had to make a catch-up payment.
So it might have been the case then that between the budget and the next financial year, there wasn't much opportunity to pass legislation.
Yeah. We don't know the answer. I don't know the answer, Senator, about.
Well, that's true because of the election.
No,
that's 24.
This
Yeah.
is 2024.
So there would have been after budget there's a short amount of winter sittings and there's the recess. Maybe, Senator, is an answer to that question.
Right.
Yeah.
10 minutes.
Okay, I'll just finish on this note then for now. So it really was kind of a rush to get this out that caused the error, which is $2.3 billion of money being paid without ministerial authorisation. In other words, unlawfully.
So I don't know that I'd characterise it as a rush, Senator, but I would, as I said before, I characterise it as, for the first time that we know of, a payment change method, and our processes did not stand up to that change, partly because our processes would focus a lot on when payments are first done. So when a payment is first instituted, we actually look at them very closely. I don't think we quite recognised well enough that when the payment changed, it was probably more like a first payment than a continuation of a program.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I'll have some further questions on this when the call can return.
Senator Patterson.
Thank you. So, Mr. White, just returning to our conversation earlier, on what date did it first become clear to Treasury that written authorisation was missing?
So there are two aspects to this, Senator. So one, there was a period just before Christmas, and I will find the right date. So it was in the first week of December. I found out on the 10th of December. I don't have the exact date of I might need to find the right bit of paper.
The processing team discovered the errors on the 27th of November.
Okay.
Yep. And so I'll go into a slightly more detail than my first answer to the question. So we actually had a problem with the instrument itself for the first two payments, which we found on the 27th of November.
Yep.
So as we said, when we changed from the first payment to the second payment, we went to a second instrument. In my answer before, when I was talking about the fact we had the wrong person, I also missed the fact that we actually had not the right program in the payment in the instrument the first time, right? So
explain that to me.
So I will get back to this. So when we actually went to the second program, we already had a delegation in place to make payments under that second stream of things I was talking about. The programs have to be named specifically in that instrument. So each of the national partnerships that it goes to. So we missed that. So when we found that in November, we put the name of the program in the instrument. It was then the payments afterwards that were made were the ones that actually had the wrong person authorising. So we had two problems in the thing. So I was explaining the first one, we had the wrong person, who was the person who was signing off on the original program, continued to sign off. That was true for all these payments. They did not have authorisation, but for 2 months we also did not have the program named.
In that instrument, was it signed by the Treasurer?
So the instrument was signed by the Treasurer.
Yes.
So we had an instrument that was signed by the Treasurer that for those first 2 payments in October and November,
Yep.
the instrument did not have the program named,
Right.
and it did not have the right level of person.
Right.
We fixed the instrument problem, the naming of the program problem. So we
Yes.
got a new instrument.
But we didn't go to the correct...
But we still had, but so we hadn't quite, and part of the reason, we actually got a new instrument that said we are adding this program to an instrument over here, but we had a separate thing that did it, and part of the problem was that the checking of actually who the thing went to in the original one was where the failure came in.
Okay, so just in very simple terms,
Yep.
2 problems.
Yes.
First problem, we didn't name the program. Second problem, the correct authorisation
Yeah, exactly,
to the level
Senator.
of SES officer
Yes.
wasn't there.
Yeah, yeah.
You fixed problem 1 when
Yeah.
it was identified, but not problem
Yeah,
2.
so we found problem 1 on the 27th of November,
Yeah.
and we fixed it in December.
When?
We got the instrument redone on the 11th of December.
Okay. Yep.
So then we recommenced after Christmas, making these monthly payments, and then it was in June. Do you have the date?
4th of
On the
June.
4th of June. We then worked out that actually this instrument had not gone down to the right level, and we had a person below that.
Right. So
signed.
basically the Treasurer has signed not 1 but 2 faulty instruments.
No. The Treasurer has not signed faulty instruments. The Treasurer had signed 2 instruments that we as Treasury had not complied with properly.
Well, that's one way of looking at it, but had the correct instruments been signed, like, naming the programs or having
Yeah.
the correct SES officer, then no issue would have arisen.
No, but also the instrument, Senator, providing authority to Treasury officials to sign off on these programs.
Yep.
The default thing would be the Minister signs off on the program. So there was a default process by which we could have gotten the Treasurer to sign off on these programs.
Yes.
He's provided administrative instruments, which is the most common thing that's done for all of these programs, for officials to sign off every month, in our case, on these. And we did not pick up that we were not complying with the instruments that were in force, and we should have gone to the Treasurer and said, can you please fix these up for us to do this properly?
Okay. So problem 1 was identified on the 27th of November, and I
Yes.
think you said...
The 4th of June was the second.
I'll come into that.
Okay.
The first problem was fixed on the 11th of December.
Yes, that's right.
So that was the first retrospective instrument.
Yes.
And then an additional problem, the second problem was identified in June. On what date in June?
The 4th of June, Senator.
4th of June. And when was that rectified?
So
The retrospective
we first
instrument?
rectified that by just getting a person who was authorised under the instrument to sign off on the programs.
But the money had already gone.
The money had already gone, that's right.
Yeah. So did a new instrument need
So
to be
then we
issued?
did have a new instrument signed by the Treasurer on
The
the 18th of September.
So hang on. Why did it take so long to get a new instrument? It's months later.
We could still make, that program ran out on the end of June, Senator.
Yeah.
And then this instrument is not only dealing with that, but it's also dealing with the second extension of...
But it's a retrospective instrument to cure the missed payment, right?
No, I don't think so, Senator. I don't think we can cure the payment problem.
Well, there was a retrospective instrument in December.
No, I don't think that's retrospective either. I don't think there's a way we can practically retrospectively fix the problem.
Okay, that's not what I understood from evidence given by the ANAO on Monday.
Yeah, I might take that on notice to make sure, but my understanding is we are basically what we're doing, these instruments are prospective.
Right.
And we cannot fix the problem. But
So the money's gone.
I will take that on notice
Sure.
to make sure that's perfectly right.
Just to be clear, so we have the same understanding right now.
Yes.
The money's gone, it was paid unlawfully, there's nothing that can be done to retrospectively make that lawful.
Well, there was authorisation for it through
Just the wrong authorisation.
through an appropriation.
Yes.
I just don't want people, any suggestion that people were making, payments that hadn't been authorised through an appropriation, because they had.
But they were unlawful.
There was a problem with the processing. It was basically human error.
Sure, Minister,
Yeah.
but you're not contesting that these were lawful payments, are you?
I think as reported, they are being reported as potential breaches of Section 83, in line with, 30 others that were
Sure.
done under your government.
Sure, Minister,
Like,
but not
these
to
are
this,
not-
as the ANO said, not to this quantum, not for $2.3 billion.
But I don't think
This is off the charts.
Well, I know you have a political point to make here.
No, I just think we should,
but when you
spend
look
money
at
according to the
these,
law.
When you look at the history of these, there are on occasion, more than you would like, more than any of us would like.
Yes, certainly more than I would like.
Seemingly pretty regular breaches of Section 83 over the years.
I don't think that's a
I'm not
defence,
saying
Minister.
I'm not saying it is an excuse. I'm saying this is not an isolated incident.
Yeah,
Where a problem is identified, as this has been, based on human error and systems in place, it needs to be declared and it needs to be fixed, and that's what's happened here. That's the important thing.
When was the Treasurer first informed on each of these errors?
So I think on the first error, Senator, we sent up a brief to him on the 9th of December, which was the brief to basically tell him about the problem and seek his...
Please sign this.
Sign new instrument.
New one. Second error, when was he notified?
So I think that was sent up on the 28th of August, Senator.
Okay.
With the same thing about here's what's happened and can you sign a new instrument?
When was the Department of Finance or the Minister for Finance first informed in each instance?
Well, I think I've answered this already, and Finance answered it yesterday.
You weren't able to provide me with a date?
Well, I think we did. Well, roughly a date, and Finance gave you the date that they were notified through the financial statements process. They weren't.
No.
They weren't notified ahead of that.
Yeah, but my memory of their evidence was they learned about it from the financial reviews reporting.
Sorry.
That they learned of it through the financial reviews reporting.
Yeah. So I can't remember what that was. Mid-November.
Okay, so
I
let's
think.
just clarify for Mr. White or Ms. Thomas.
We sent our financial statements over to Finance on the 18th of September. I
The
think
18th?
I think they might have said the 17th of September yesterday, but it's basically one of those days.
Right. So they didn't notice it until it was in the AFR several weeks later. When was the Prime Minister or PM&C first informed?
I don't believe we've informed PM&C, Senator.
Right, okay.
This is an internal Treasury appropriation problem.
Indeed. Okay, when was the ANO first informed?
So the ANAO were first informed, I think, on the 31st of March, 2005, so this year.
Right, so that was obviously only in relation to the first matter?
Yes, it was to the first one, Senator, that's right. And that was through a normal process. We have this thing called a Financial Statements and Annual Performance Subcommittee. The Audit Officer on that committee, it's a normal internal governance committee that we would report these sorts of things to.
Yeah. So at that meeting, someone from Treasury said, we've found this problem.
Yep.
Okay, and the second error?
The second error was on the 19th of June.
19th. That ANO was told on the 19th of June?
That's what I understand, Senator, yeah.
Yep. And how were they told about the second error on the 19th of June?
I don't have that in front of me, Senator. Do you know, Mark? We might have to take that on notice, Senator. I don't know.
Okay. Do you have a clarity about whether this became obvious to the ANO as part of their normal auditing of Treasury, or whether it was self-reported by Treasury?
No. So we found these errors, Senator, in the process. It's almost so. To go to the how often this happens question, we almost certainly find some of these in the payments to the states function every year, not necessarily our own department's problems, but it's been other departments. We will normally find our team that does this centralised function of payments to states is normally the team that finds these. That's because you have to be right down in the detail to find them, and the sorts of things that Audit Office do, unless they do a specific audit, will not find them. Especially, so if they're just doing financial statement audits like they normally do, they will not find them. So we found them, we self-declared them to the Audit Office and to our internal governance committees, etc., and told the Treasurer, obviously.
Okay. And the first time you publicly disclosed it was in your annual report?
Yes, Senator, in the same way that we've done the same thing for the last several years at least.
Okay. There's no other kind of reporting mechanism you're expected or required to do?
No, not outside of Treasury that I know of, Senator, no.
Did anybody tell the states, oh, sorry, that payment we made to you is not technically legit?
I don't believe so, Senator.
I mean, they're probably just happy to have the money, but you didn't think to give them a call and let them know?
Well, I don't believe so. If that's not right, we'll correct the record.
Okay.
this block.
Oh,
Can
look, I could
just,
keep going and going and going, Chair, but
Yeah, can I just let the community know, in 2019-20, there was a reported in the consolidated financial statements 14.6 billion in relation to a potential breach of Section 83 in relation to a program being run by the Department of Education, Skills and Employment. So I think my point, you know, and I'm using this to support the point I've been making indeed yesterday, which is the value of the breach. I mean, of course you're going to look at it, but it's the fact that there was a potential breach that is the problem.
okay. Just finally from me, Chair, on this, and then
Yeah,
I can.
I thought you might want to
happily
ignore
let
that
you-
bit, because you're
thank you.
trying to make so much of something that's, you know, compared to some of the breaches that happen under your government.
Minister, you shouldn't be so defensive then, if that's the case.
I'm not defensive. I'm just trying to explain it was a human error that has been fixed.
Well, and I want to go to that. So,
Yeah.
Mr White, as I understand it, the Treasury's described this in the annual report as a technical breach. What is a technical breach?
So, as I said at the beginning, Senator, when we think about payments to the states, we think about getting two things right. One is the substantial policy parts, right, which is about have we got the right amount of money going to the right state for the right reasons at the right time. The other part, as I said, is the administrative parts of that, which is normally this authorisation process. So we have used the word technical breaches for a number of years now to mean that getting the administrative part wrong. That basically we've complied with all the sorts of things, the substantive policy things are complied with, and where there is a breach of the administrative part, it's being technical. Now that language was also used in things like the consolidated financial statements back at the same time we started doing this. And then when there have been payments that we have reported in years where it's not been that, but it's been the wrong amount paid, we have not used the word technical. So that's what we've been trying to differentiate between. It's not being technical as it's like not important or somehow lesser than the other thing, but it's trying to differentiate between those two aspects of what we look at.
Because the ANAO said to me on Monday that they thought it was a serious breach. Do you agree?
Yes, Senator, it is a serious breach.
Yeah, and a breach of a fundamental principle of governance in Australia.
So as I said, we are not. That language is not meant to convey some lesser problem than not getting the policy parts right. It was to try and differentiate between the two. And I will say, so the words we used in there were in our financial statements, which are audited by the Audit Office. Yeah. And so they did not raise with us issues around using that language in there when they. Sure, but Mr White, Treasury is not unfamiliar with making payments. If there's any department of the Commonwealth who would hope would be making payments lawfully and constitutionally, Treasury would be right up there. I accept we should do a good job. As I said, we do have these two roles. One is to be the central area that makes all the Commonwealth's payments to the states. That is true, and we are the people who are most familiar with that part. We do not actually have that many individual payments as an agency that are our responsibility. Sure. We actually only have a small number of those, and well, in fact, and in some of the changes that have happened recently with things like housing coming into Treasury, we're actually getting more. And part of our remediation process is making sure that actually that bit when we're doing our own payments is
that's
as
my
robust
kind
as
of
possible.
final point: is how confident are you that this won't happen again? So
we went through when we found the error, we went through all the payments we had been making and found no other errors. We have a system that tries to pick up all the errors, has checks and balances to make sure we do it. We think we minimise the chances of errors, but as you can see when we report against this in our annual report and the payments to the states thing, the CFS, it's actually almost impossible to prevent every single error in these. So I can't sit here and promise you that we won't make an error again. I can just say that we have put in place the processes we best think stops these things.
Sure, but don't tell me it's impossible to comply with the Constitution and make lawful payments. Surely that is not impossible.
That's what I said.
Well, that's why I'm giving you an opportunity to respond.
No, you're putting words together.
No. I'd say, please contradict me.
Yeah.
Please contradict me.
Senator, I cannot sit here and promise you that we will not make an error ever again, right? I can sit here and promise you that we will put in place processes that we think best meet all the things we need to do and minimise that entirely. We cannot stop every human error in this process. There are humans in these things.
Sure, but a good system means that a human error doesn't cause
should be
something
picked
to be,
up.
exactly.
Agreed. No, I agree with that entirely. But it is also true that some things find their way through systems.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't want to promise you we can't make an error and have to come back here next year.
No,
and go,
that would be an unreasonable standard to hold you to, but
Just on the use of language too, in that potential breach of Section 83 I mentioned before from 2019-20, those in the Department of Education and Employment then described the payments in its financial statements as being technically in breach of Section 83. This is because the right amounts were paid to the right schools at the right time. The error related to the legislative authority around the payment rather than the substance of the payment. So it's entirely consistent with how that was dealt with.
Sure, Minister, but let's not not try and minimise this. This is serious. I think compliance with the Constitution is a serious matter.
No, and
I know that's old-fashioned.
I agree with you, but I'm also... My point for the last 2 days has been, yes, you avoid a problem. You avoid a potential breach. Your system should avoid that. But where there is one, it's how you respond to that. You have to report it. You have to deal with it. You have to go back through your processes. That's what we expect of departments, and in this instance, that's what they've done.
Thank you, Chair. I understand. Yep.
We will